There is a particular kind of silence that falls over an office building after the sun has gone down. A deep, resonant quiet that feels almost like a physical weight settling upon the shoulders. It is not an empty silence, not exactly. Rather, it is filled with the subtle, rhythmic breathing of the building itself, the low, steady hum of the air conditioning units pushing cool air through metal ducts, the occasional settle and creak of floorboards adjusting to the temperature change, the distant, muffled sound of traffic moving through the rainy streets far below. Tonight, the rain is a constant companion, a soft, percussive tapping against the large glass windows that line the hallway. I found myself walking down that hallway, the carpet muffling my footsteps, moving with a slow, drifting aimlessness. The workday had ended hours ago. The cleaning crews had come and gone, and yet I remained, caught in the gravity of the quiet. There is something strangely comforting about being the only soul in a space designed for hundreds. It transforms the mundane rows of cubicles into a landscape of shadows and stillness. I made my way toward the breakroom, not because I was particularly hungry or thirsty, but simply because it was a destination, a glowing beacon of fluorescent light at the end of the dim corridor. The door was propped open, just a crack, allowing a slice of bright, artificial light to spill out onto the carpet. I pushed it open gently, the hinges giving a soft sigh, and stepped inside. The break room was suspended in a state of paused animation. The round white tables were wiped clean, reflecting the overhead lights like still ponds. The chairs were pushed in, though not perfectly, some slightly askew, hinting at the conversations and lunches that had taken place earlier in the day. The air smelled faintly of stale coffee and industrial lemon cleaner, a scent that in this moment of solitude felt strangely nostalgic. I walked over to the vending machine, the compressor humming a low, vibrating note that I could feel in the soles of my shoes. The colorful wrappers inside glowed behind the glass, untouched, waiting. I turned away, leaning back against the counter, and let my eyes wander across the room. That was when I saw it. Sitting alone on the farthest table, the one tucked into the corner near the window where the rain streaked the glass in long, weeping lines, was a phone. It wasn't a modern smartphone, not a sleek slab of black glass and brushed aluminum. It was older, a relic of a time that feels both distant and familiar. It was a flip phone, a burner phone, made of cheap, matte black plastic. It sat there, distinct and solitary against the white laminate of the table, like a stone resting on a frozen lake. I pushed off the counter and walked toward it, my movements slow, deliberate. The room felt smaller suddenly, the focus narrowing down to that single, dark object. Why had it been left here? Who leaves a phone behind in this day and age, when our devices are tethered to us like extra limbs? I reached the table and looked down at it. It was small, compact. There were no scratches on the casing, no signs of wear that usually mark a device that is carried in pockets and purses every day. It looked pristine, almost new. It is strange how an inanimate object can hold such a presence, how it can seem to wait for you. I reached out, my hand hovering for a moment before my fingers brushed against the cool plastic. It was light, surprisingly so. I picked it up, feeling the smooth texture, the slight curve of the edges. It felt toy-like compared to the heavy phone currently sitting in my own pocket. I turned it over in my hands, inspecting it. There was no branding, no logos, just plain, unadorned black plastic. It was a vessel, a container for something I did not yet understand. I sat down in the chair nearest the window, the fabric of the seat rough against my clothes. Outside, the city lights were blurred smears of amber and red through the rain-slicked glass. I was alone in the bubble of the breakroom, with only the hum of the refrigerator and the rhythm of the rain for company. With a gentle click, I used my thumb to pry the phone open. The hinge offered a satisfying amount of resistance, a tactile snap that echoed softly in the quiet room. The screen flared to life, not with the high-definition brilliance we are used to, but with the soft, bluish glow of an LCD display. The light was dim, pixelated, casting a small, ghostly square of illumination onto my palm. The interface was simple, primitive. A battery icon in the corner showed a full charge, a series of solid black bars. The signal strength was strong. The background was just a solid, deep blue color. No wallpaper, no photo of a loved one or a pet, no landscape, just the void of blue. I stared at the screen, mesmerizing in its simplicity. The time displayed in the center read 11:42 p.m. The colon between the numbers blinked. On, off, on, off, counting away the seconds of the night. My thumb hovered over the keypad. The buttons were rubbery, soft to the touch. I pressed the center button, the menu key. The phone responded instantly, a little pixelated list appearing on the screen. Contacts, call log, messages, settings. I scrolled down, the highlight bar moving with a sluggish grace. I bypassed the contacts. I bypassed the call log. I felt drawn, instinctively, to the messages. There's something inherently intimate about text messages. Little fragments of thought sent through the air, captured and stored. I selected Messages. The screen changed. Inbox 14. 14 messages. Not hundreds, not thousands. Just 14. A manageable number. A finite story waiting to be told. I hesitated again. There is a boundary one crosses when reading another person's words. A veil of privacy that, once lifted, cannot be lowered again. But the phone was here, abandoned, or perhaps left for someone to find. In the silence of the break room, with the rain drumming a hypnotic beat against the window, it felt less like an invasion and more like an archaeological discovery. I pressed Select. The list of messages appeared. They were not organized by name, for there were no names stored in the contact list. They were organized only by date and time. The most recent message was at the top. The timestamp was from today, just a few hours ago. 8:15 p.m. I looked at the date. It was today's date. The phone had been active, receiving, while I was sitting at my desk just down the hall, while the office was winding down, while the sun was setting. I scrolled to the bottom of the list, wanting to start at the beginning. I wanted to understand the arc, the journey. The oldest message was from 3 weeks ago. I took a deep breath, the air cool and still, and opened the first message. The screen flickered slightly as the text loaded. The letters were blocky, black against the glowing blue background. I read the words slowly, letting them sink into the quiet atmosphere of the room. The message read, "The package has been placed in the ventilation shaft. 3rd floor, east wing. Do not retrieve until the rain stops." I blinked, staring at the words. The ventilation shaft, the 3rd floor. I was currently on the 4th floor. The text was simple, instructional, devoid of emotion. Yet, in the context of this silent office, it felt heavy with implication. I looked out the window. The rain was still falling, harder now, sheets of water washing over the glass. Do not retrieve until the rain stops. I felt a subtle shift in the air, a deepening of the mystery. This was not a message about groceries, or meeting for dinner, or a quick check-in. This was logistical, precise. I pressed the back button, returning to the list. I moved up to the second message. The soft click of the plastic button sounded loud in the room. This one was dated 2 days later. I opened it. Observation complete. The subject follows the same route every evening. They stop at the vending machine. They buy the same item. Predictable. A chill, gentle but distinct, washed over me. I looked over at the vending machine, humming its low, monotonous tune in the corner. I thought about my own routine, my own aimless walks to this room. Was I the subject? Or was it someone else? The text offered no names, no descriptions, just observations. I sat back in the chair, the phone resting in my palm like a glowing ember. The breakroom, once familiar and mundane, now felt charged with a hidden narrative. The shadows in the corners seemed to stretch a little further. The hum of the refrigerator seemed to deepen in pitch. I looked down at the phone again. 12 messages remained unread. 12 more fragments of a story that had been playing out silently within these walls. I felt a pull, a gentle magnetic urge to continue, to drift further into this digital rabbit hole. I adjusted my posture, settling into the hardness of the chair, and prepared to read the next one, allowing the silence of the office to wrap around me like a heavy, protective blanket. The night was long, and I had nowhere else to be. The screen flickered slightly, a tiny pulse of light in the dim cavern of the breakroom. I took a slow, deep breath, inhaling the scent of stale coffee and industrial floor cleaner that always seemed to linger here after hours. It was a comforting smell, in a way, the scent of stillness, the scent of a pause in the chaotic motion of the world. My thumb hovered over the glass, a hesitation born not of fear, but of reverence for the quiet moment. I slid the screen upward, revealing the next message. It was dated from 3 days prior, time-stamped just after the sun would have dipped below the horizon, painting the office windows in shades of bruised purple and charcoal. The text read, "The cleaning crew changed their rotation. The tall one hums a lullaby while he empties the shredder. It sounds like the ocean. I wonder if he knows he is singing to the secrets of the company. I lowered the phone to the table, the plastic case making a soft click against the laminate surface. I closed my eyes for a moment. I knew that sound. I had heard the hum of the vacuum cleaners, the rhythmic squeak of the polishing machines late at night. But I had never listened, truly listened, to the people operating them. The text framed the mundane act of cleaning as something sacred, a ritual of erasing the day's debris. The shredder, a machine of destruction, became a vessel for a lullaby. It made me wonder about the soundtrack of my own life, the background noise I tuned out, the melodies I missed while buried in spreadsheets and emails. I picked up the phone again, the device feeling cool and smooth against my skin. The next message was shorter, more cryptic. The plant in the corner is dying. Everyone pours their leftover water into it, but nobody opens the blinds. It is drowning in kindness, but starving for light. I involuntarily glanced toward the corner of the breakroom. There stood the ficus, its leaves drooping, a dusty shade of green that bordered on gray. I had poured water there myself, just yesterday, a mindless act, a disposal of tepid liquid I no longer wanted. Was it kindness, or was it convenience? The observer saw the tragedy in it, the slow, silent suffocation of a living thing amidst the fluorescent hum. The silence of the room felt thicker now, like water filling a tank. I was submerged in it. The only lifeline was this glowing rectangle, this window into another mind. I scrolled down. The new intern wears shoes that squeak. Squeak, step. Squeak, step. He walks with a rhythm that says he is afraid to take up space. He apologizes to the door when he bumps it. A faint smile touched my lips. I knew who this was. Young David from accounting. I had seen him flinch when the elevator dinged too loudly. The observer noticed his anxiety, not with malice, but with a gentle, almost paternal attention. There was a profound loneliness in these texts, but also a profound connection. To watch someone so closely is a form of intimacy, even if the subject never knows they are being seen. I shifted in my chair, the fabric rustling softly. The sound seemed to echo, bouncing off the stark white walls. I was part of this ecosystem too. Was there a text about me? About the way I stirred my tea? About the way I stared out the window at the parking lot when I thought no one was looking? I swiped again. Thursday. The rain makes everyone walk faster. They hunch their shoulders. They become turtles, hiding inside their coats. But the receptionist, she tilts her head back. She catches the drops. She is the only one who remembers that water is life. I pictured the scene. The gray sheet of rain against the glass, the rush of bodies trying to stay dry, and amidst the gray blur, a single moment of appreciation. The observer was looking for beauty, hunting for it in the sterile corridors of corporate existence. It was soothing to read, like poetry written on a bathroom stall, unexpected and raw. I looked at the time on the phone. It was getting late, or perhaps early. The concept of time felt slippery here, dissolved by the artificial lights and the endless hum of the ventilation system. I felt anchored only by the sequence of messages, a digital breadcrumb trail leading me deeper into the night. The next message was different. It wasn't an observation of a person, but of the building itself. The elevator on the north side sighs when it reaches the top floor, a mechanical exhale. It is tired of carrying our weight. It rests for 3 seconds before the doors open. I counted. I paused, letting that sink in. 3 seconds. A tiny pocket of time. A mechanical breath. I tried to imagine the person standing there, counting the seconds, empathizing with a steel box. It suggested a mind that moved at a different speed than the rest of us. While we rushed to meetings, checking our watches, this person was listening to the sighs of the machinery. I felt a strange sense of calm wash over me. The world described in these texts was slower, richer, more detailed. It was a world where elevators had feelings and shredders sang lullabies. It was a gentler world. I read on. They brought donuts today, pink frosting, sprinkles. The box sat open like a treasure chest. By noon, only the crumbs remained. We consume sugar to forget the bitterness of the coffee. We are simple creatures. Simple creatures. Yes. We follow patterns. We seek comfort. We migrate to the breakroom. We look for the sweet things to offset the bitter. The phone felt heavier now, weighted with the gravity of these small truths. I looked around the room again. The vending machine, the dying plant, the empty donut box in the recycling bin. Everything was exactly as the texts described, yet everything had changed. The objects were no longer just background noise. They were characters in a silent play, illuminated by the spotlight of this stranger's attention. The next text sent a ripple of goosebumps down my arms, not from fear, but from a sudden, sharp recognition. Someone left a book on the table in the lobby. The Invisible Man. Irony is not lost on the universe. I moved it to the lost and found. It felt warm to the touch. I remembered seeing that book. I had walked past it 2 days ago. I hadn't stopped. I hadn't touched it. I had simply registered it as clutter and kept moving. But the observer had stopped. They had felt the warmth of the hands that held it last. They had engaged with the world where I had merely passed through it. I leaned forward, resting my elbows on the table, cradling the phone with both hands. The blue light cast long, distorted shadows across the tabletop. I felt like a detective in a dream, solving a mystery where the only crime was inattention. The only victim was the present moment, constantly overlooked. There were 5 messages left in this block. I could feel the end of the narrative approaching, or at least, the end of this chapter. I wanted to savor them. I wanted to slow down my own reading, to match the pace of the writer. The lights flicker in the hallway at 6:15 p.m. every day. It is the building blinking, a Morse code of voltage, dash, dot, dash. I am trying to decode it. I found myself staring up at the fluorescent tubes above me. They hummed steadily, a flat, white note. Did they blink? Did the building speak? I had never been here at 6:15 p.m. in the hallway. I was usually in my car, fighting the traffic, listening to the news, insulated from the subtle rhythms of the structure that housed my days. The isolation of the break room felt absolute now. The rest of the office was dark, a maze of cubicles and shadows. But here, in this pool of light, I felt a strange companionship with the owner of the phone. We were both watchers now. We were both awake while the world slept. I swiped to the next text. The manager wears a watch that costs more than my car. He checks it constantly. He is checking to see how much life he has sold. He looks worried that the price was too low. A heavy observation. Piercing. It stripped away the status, the suit, the authority, and left only a man worried about the transaction of his time. I looked at my own wrist, bare. I had stopped wearing a watch years ago. I relied on the digital clock on my computer, on my phone. Time was a number on a screen, not a ticking hand. But the sentiment rang true. We were all selling our time here, hour by hour, minute by minute. And tonight, I was spending my time reading the thoughts of a ghost. Was it a waste? Or was it the most real thing I had done all week? The air in the room seemed to cool slightly, the ventilation cycling to a lower setting. The hum deepened. I wrapped my cardigan tighter around myself, feeling the texture of the wool. 3 texts remained. My eyes felt heavy, but my mind was wide awake, buzzing with the quiet intensity of the words. A spider has built a web between the water cooler and the wall. It is a masterpiece of engineering, geometric perfection. The cleaning crew swept around it. Perhaps they respect the architect. I smiled, a small mercy, a tiny alliance between the cleaner and the spider, observed by the phantom with the burner phone. It was a delicate image, fragile as the web itself. It suggested a world where small lives mattered, where a spider's work was recognized as architecture. I found myself looking toward the water cooler. It was too dark in that corner to see if the web was still there. I imagined it, glistening in the shadows, a silver net catching nothing but dust and silence. I prepared for the next message, my thumb moving with slow, deliberate grace. The narrative was flowing like a slow river, carrying me gently toward a destination I couldn't yet see. The breakroom was no longer a place of stale coffee and plastic chairs. It was a sanctuary of observation, and I was its newest initiate. I took a sip of the air, tasting the silence, and read on. The light from the screen seemed to soften, becoming less of a digital glare and more like a candle flickering in a windless room. I scrolled to the next message, moving with the lethargy of a dream. The timestamp indicated deep winter, a Tuesday, just past 3 in the morning. The vending machine hums in the key of B flat, the text read. Leopard enough, it sounds like a cello holding a single note forever. It is not a noise. It is the heartbeat of the building. It keeps the silence from becoming too heavy. I lowered the phone to my lap and closed my eyes, listening. I had never truly heard the room before. I had only occupied it, waiting for the microwave to ding or the coffee to brew. But now, I listened for the cello, and there it was, a low, steady vibration that seemed to emanate from the walls themselves. It was a grounding sound, a constant anchor in a drifting world. The machine was not just dispensing snacks. It was humming a lullaby to the empty chairs and the linoleum floor. The realization washed over me, a warm wave of awareness. How much of the world's music do we miss, simply because we classify it as noise? I opened my eyes and returned to the glowing script, eager for the next lesson in seeing. The janitor, Elias, wears shoes with soft rubber soles, the next message observed. He moves like a cloud. He thinks he is invisible, but I see the way he straightens the magazines on the rack. He doesn't just stack them. He aligns the edges perfectly. He creates order out of chaos. It is a form of prayer, this straightening of things. He is the curator of this museum of midnight. A museum of midnight. What a beautiful title for a break room. I looked at the magazine rack in the corner. The edges were indeed aligned, parallel lines resting in the gloom. I felt a sudden surge of gratitude for Elias, and for the observer who had noticed him. It made me feel that no gesture was truly lost. Every small act of care, every moment of tidying, every quiet step was witnessed by the atmosphere itself, recorded in the memory of the room. The scroll bar on the side of the screen was becoming smaller, indicating that I was nearing the end of the archive. I didn't want it to end, yet there was a comfort in knowing that all stories, even these fragmented ones, have a resting place. The next few messages were shorter, almost like haikus composed in the dark. The potted fern in the corner has turned a new leaf toward the window. It is reaching for the street lamp outside. It mistakes the sodium glow for the sun. I do not have the heart to tell it otherwise. Hope is hope, regardless of the source. I looked at the fern. It was a ragged thing, often neglected, but there it was, stretching its green fingers toward the faint illumination of the parking lot. A silent striving, a quiet resilience. The next text read, "Pink frosting, one slice remains. It looks lonely. I wonder whose year we were celebrating. I hope they felt loved. I hope they made a wish that didn't involve work." The tenderness in these words was palpable. It was a compassion that asked for nothing in return. The writer didn't need to know the birthday person to wish them well. It was a universal benevolence, born of solitude. When we are alone, truly alone and quiet, our capacity to care seems to expand, filling the empty space. I pressed my thumb to the glass one more time, the motion slow, hypnotic. The dates on the messages were getting closer to the present. "Reflection in the window," read the text. "When the room is dark, the glass becomes a mirror. I see myself, but transparency is mixed with the image. I am half here, half out there in the night. We are all just ghosts wearing clothes, haunting our own lives. But it is a gentle haunting. We are friendly ghosts." I turned my head toward the window. The darkness outside turned the pane into a black mirror. I saw my own outline, faint, indistinct. I saw the glow of the phone in my hand, like a captured firefly. I didn't feel fear at the thought of being a ghost. I felt lightness. To be a ghost is to float, to observe without interfering, to drift through walls and worries without them sticking to you. For a moment, I let go of my physical weight. I let my shoulders drop, my breathing deepen, my spirit unspooling in the quiet room. There were only 2 messages left. The battery icon in the corner of the screen turned red, a soft warning that the energy was fading. It felt appropriate. The device was tired. The story was concluding. I realized tonight, the penultimate message said, that I am not waiting for anything. I used to think I sat here, waiting for my shift to end, or for morning to come, or for life to begin. But the waiting is the life. This chair, this silence, the hum of the fridge, the spider, the moon. This is it, and it is enough. It is plenty. It is enough. The words settled into my chest like a heavy, warm blanket. The cessation of striving, the end of the chase. To simply be here, in the break room, with the dust motes and the shadows, was a complete experience. There was nothing missing. The anxiety of the next thing dissolved, leaving only the smooth, polished surface of the now. I hesitated before reading the final text. I wanted to savor the stillness that the previous message had created. I took a deep breath, inhaling the scent of the room, old paper, floor wax, and the faint, metallic tang of rain on the air conditioning unit. I was fully present, grounded. I looked down. The final text was dated just yesterday. The sun is coming up over the warehouse across the street. It paints the brick in shades of apricot and bruise purple. The night is folding its wings. I am leaving this phone here. It has held my thoughts, but I don't need to carry them anymore. If you find this, know that the quiet is yours now. Keep it safe, or let it go. It doesn't matter. Just breathe. Just breathe. The screen dimmed, and then, as if obeying the rhythm of the narrative, it went black. The battery had given its last spark. I sat there in the darkness, holding the cold, sleek weight of the phone. I didn't try to turn it back on. The message had been delivered. The torch had been passed. The quiet was mine now. I placed the phone gently on the table, exactly where I had found it. I positioned it with care, aligning it with the edge of the table, just as Elias the janitor would have done. It looked peaceful there. A small black monolith, a monument to observation. I stood up, my movements slow and fluid. My legs felt heavy, relaxed, as if I had just woken from a long, restorative nap. The break room seemed different now. It wasn't empty. It was full. Full of the spider's architecture, the fern's hope, the vending machine's song, and the lingering thoughts of a stranger who had learned to see the beauty in the mundane. I walked to the door, my footsteps silent on the linoleum. I paused with my hand on the frame, looking back one last time. The room was a pool of shadows, tranquil and deep. The spider web near the water cooler caught a stray beam of light from the hallway, glimmering faintly, a silver thread in the dark. I smiled, a small, private smile. "Good night," I whispered to the room. "Good night, spider. Good night, fern." I stepped out into the hallway, letting the door click shut behind me with a soft, decisive sound. The silence followed me, wrapped around me like a shawl. I carried the peace of the breakroom with me, internal and vast. As I walked away, I felt my mind drifting towards sleep, the images of the texts swirling gently behind my eyes, the geometric web, the humming machine, the apricot sunrise. The world was soft. The world was watching over itself. And all I had to do was breathe. Breathe in, breathe out, drifting into the quiet, into the dark, complete.